Welcome to the Legendarium Green Team. I'm Jingles90, and with me today is Hurin Fan.
Hey, hey, hey.
And today we are going to talk about the chronologically first book in the Elric Saga, Elric of Melniboné. And I'm
Not
pretty sure that's how
not
it's pronounced.
Melniboné.
um, That's what to start the episode, we are going to go over just like a brief synopsis of who Elric is, where the inspirations for Elric came from, and why we're choosing to start here. And then we will get into an actual proper discussion of the book. So, Elric the Eighth, 428th Emperor of Melniboné, is the creation of writer Michael Moorcock. Elric first appeared in the novella The Dreaming City in 1961. Since then, he has appeared in numerous novels, short stories, and comics, and has been referenced in music and other art, crossing over with such characters as Conan, who some critics believe is being directly parodied by him. This is Moorcock's take on the doomed hero and was deeply influenced by Paul Anderson's Three Hearts and Three Lions, Fletcher Pratt's The Well of the Unicorn, Bertolt Brecht's Threepenny Opera, and the Finnish myths of Kalervo. Elric is also one of the many facets of Moorcock's eternal champion, but the lore for that is something that this book didn't really cover, so we're not going to get into that whole multiverse piece of this right now. Addressing the Tolkien in the room, Moorcock has actually stated that he does not believe he was ever directly influenced by Tolkien, so most similarities to Elric, to someone like, say, Turin Turambar, seem to be primarily due to pulling influence from the same source material. While The Dreaming City is where Elric first appeared, we've opted to start with the novel Elric of Melniboné, which is first in the internal chronological order. We've read the 2013 revised edition, which can be found in Saga Press's recent 2022 editions of the Elric Saga. The novel was originally printed in 1972, so just keep in mind, if you're listening to this for the first time, we're talking about a piece of work that was written 11 years after the character originally appeared. So a lot of things may be different there. And you may also see, I don't know, hearing with that knowledge in mind, I feel like sometimes this novel was very much focused on getting me caught up to certain aspects of Elric that I was probably already supposed to be taking for granted or should have known that were appearing. How about you?
I had that feeling by the end of the novel. I mean, you could tell at many points that it's kind of pulling you towards a direction. Yeah, I had that feeling.
Oh. And how'd you feel about the book overall? Did you enjoy it or?
I did. I didn't know like almost any of the stuff that you just shared.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Thanks for sharing
um,
that. And the only influence I'd actually even heard of was Threepenny Opera, and I read it, but I've forgotten almost all of it. So I might have to check out some of those other influences.
yeah, that's
Um,
what I think. I'm kind of on the same boat. I've definitely heard of the Threepenny Opera before, but I've never read it, and I don't. If I've seen parts of it, I didn't acknowledge them as being Threepenny Opera bits. So it was interesting to see. But yeah, doing this research gave me a whole new list of things to check out.
But yeah, like I said, I really like this. I didn't know what to expect. I've never read Moorcock. I know he is a giant in the genre and incredibly influential. And after reading this, I could see like everywhere where he's like present in the genre, especially because this is probably the furthest back that I've read that is anything like this. But yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about his influences later. I have a few critiques, and I had a few things that that I just didn't like. But overall, I'm pretty damn positive on it. Uh, and I think part of that help was it's so short.
It really is. Like this is a I did like 2 reading sessions and I got through half the book each time. It's really just not a difficult work to get through. Um Moorcock is not really playing with any fancy purple prose. He's being I I think the the parodying of Conan might be pretty apt here in that it is not that I've read much Robert E. Howard, but just generally what we know of Conan the Barbarian and what kind of character he is, you can kind of get the impression that this is the antithesis. Elric is. Everything is a little bit more philosophical. It's a little bit more direct, and the writing itself feels much more akin to that pulp style than maybe some of those works where they were highfalutin, maybe a little excessive, but you know, they're a little bit more dramatic.
I never read any Howard, and the only thing I know about Conan is from the movies. And those were so long ago. So the the, the only way I see how it's anything like Conan is that it's kind of the opposite, where Conan is a big, strong, super dude who plows through his enemies and just like violence first. And seems like Elric is like the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, a little more silent, a little more thoughtful in some respects. The philosophy in this book is not deep, but it is interesting.
I think that's honestly my biggest problem, because I was expecting something a little deeper,
Yeah,
especially after reading Epic Pooh. I'm surprised you didn't bring up Epic Pooh. Have you read it?
I'm not familiar.
Oh, okay, I'll talk about it later. I was expecting a little bit more. What I got was nice, but yeah, it's pretty surface level stuff, and I was expecting it to go places that didn't go.
Yeah,
It seemed like it was only there to be like, oh, this is like a thinking man's emperor. I'm like, okay, I get that, but I mean,
yeah.
I wanted a little more thinking.
I would have, yeah, I would have liked to actually see some of those thoughts on the page rather than the he went on his throne and thought. Like, it'd be, oh, okay. That's as far as we're going. That said, as sparse as the writing might sometimes feel, the imagery is very strong for me in this book. I had no problem, and maybe and this might depend on the reader, but I felt like there was just enough information to just let my imagination kind of run amok with certain things. And when things like putting a ship on land and there's like an earthquake to kind of mimic waves and things like that, just very fantastical nature of it lent a lot to be um uh uh, left the brain very happy and very full. I don't know. Do you agree?
I do. Yeah, I generally prefer more descriptions. Um, but the little that we got, Moorcock, I found from this book. Again, I've only read this at Epic Pooh, which is a um, nonfiction essay. But Moorcock is so good at atmosphere, in this book at the very least. And while, like you said, the descriptions are sparse, and I generally prefer it to be a little bit more there, but what he has is very effective. What I said earlier about it being influential, like this book feels like a metal album cover.
It does. Absolutely.
Like it feels like whoever made the Doom games, Romero and Carmack, were just reading this book over and over again and said, okay, this is what we want. This is what we want. The very first description of Elric is fantastic. It is the color of a bleached skull, his flesh, and the long hair which flows below his shoulders is milk white. From the tapering, beautiful head stare two slanting eyes, crimson and moody, and from the loose sleeves of his yellow gown emerge two slender hands, also the color of bone, resting on each arm of a seat which has been carved from a single massive ruby. Like that's a great way to start a book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know exactly what this guy looks like now. And then it's helpful that like all of the art of him matches that exact description too. I really you can see this guy with no issues.
I also want to call it his description of Tanglebones, which is a very old servant of Elric. Tanglebones was very old and much taller than Elric, although his back was stooped and all of his limbs seemed knotted and twisted back on themselves like the limbs of a strong old tree.
Yeah. It's
It's
really
great.
good. It's fantastic. I yeah, he does some amazing descriptions, and then sometimes does none. I don't want to get too much into the plot point of this one, but this is a description of three creatures that Elric eventually fights. So So this is three separate areas as these creatures are introduced, but the first says, "Pig," said the face with tusks in it. Elric was not certain whether he was being insulted or whether the creature was describing himself. Pig. Two more faces with tusks in them came out of the patch of darkness. Pig, said one. Snake, said the voice behind Elric and Rekshir. Elric turned while Rekshir continued to watch the pigs. A tall youth stood there. Where his head would have been sprouted the bodies of about 15 good-sized snakes. The head of each snake glared at Elric. The tongues flickered, and they all opened their mouths at exactly the same moment to say again, snake. And then there's a final description. Thing, said another voice. Elric glanced in that direction, gasped, drew his sword, and felt nausea sweep through him. And then he cuts off all description of thing after that point. It's a very Lovecraftian, like, this is all you need to know that this thing is an awful looking thing. I think some like descriptions later down in the fight can kind of lead to the belief that maybe Thing has a bunch of hands just sprouting out of the body. But I love that he's like picking and choosing where he's going to add description to effect, and it happens throughout the book in different ways. But I think that's just like one of the stronger, one of the moments that really resonated with me when I saw that.
Yeah,
Um,
that was a really good scene there. But what I like about his style is I said earlier that the breakneck speed was a boon, but in some ways I also thought it detracted from the story. But I
um,
think I like that he can take time with his prose sometimes, like the wonderful description at the beginning of the story or ways to set the atmosphere. But then he can, like especially in fight scenes, his sentences get really short and really punchy, and it's really moving the action forward. So in that aspect, he's a very good stylist.
yeah, very much so. Part of the reason I'm pretty okay with how quick this particular book moves is when I'm reading it, I kind of feel like it shares a lot of commonalities with a lot of English translations of Greek and Roman myth that I've read.
Mm.
When you look at um, I don't know, Jason and the Argonauts, or oh, why am I Theseus? What's the name of his? But like when he
Minotaur?
the
Is it
Minotaur, but also when he like holds up when he holds up the world for Atlas and fights
it's
Medusa, all
Hercules?
of the or is that Hercules? Am I mistaking?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when you read Hercules's struggles, why am I'm totally blanking. I'm sorry. I apologize. But
12 tasks?
his tasks, yeah, when you read all of his tasks in order, this is that's kind of the same tempo that Elric kind of holds. Like book 1, we have this encounter that leads to the point where he is betrayed. And then act 2, we have this second adventure that takes him to the point where he encounters more things and fails to do what he needs to do. And then the third, he does yet more travel and ends up fighting again a bunch of different things to finally finish out the novel, which continues the pattern by the end. Not to spoil it too much, but we know that there are a lot of Elric stories, and that there is not really, as far as I know, a solid conclusion to them all. Um,
Oh, really? Oh, that's a little disappointing.
yeah, I mean, maybe there is. They've done a complete. I think Saga Press did a complete collection of everything that's out, and so there might be an ending in there, but I'm just not 100% sure.
I assume
Um,
Moorcock's dead, yes?
I think he's still alive. In
Really?
fact, I
Wow.
think yeah, I think he might still be writing.
My goodness.
Yeah, he is 86 years old.
My goodness, okay. Good for
Yeah,
him.
and the guy's doing well, and I think see, when was the last thing what's the last thing in his bibliography? This is kind of an interesting problem, not necessarily to do with the book, but just with the idea of starting a series that's so prolific as this.
Mm.
If you go to the Wikipedia pages, of this guy to try to figure out any of these things, you're just gonna be inundated with a ton of information about a ton of things that he's worked on, and it's never gonna be in order.
The Folk of the Forest was the last thing in the Elric Saga that has been released. It was 2023, and it was a novelette.
2023. Okay, so, yeah, that's pretty recent. I mean, 3 years ago, that seems and I'm seeing that he wrote something in 2026, The Wounds of Albion. So, no, guy keeps busy.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. And then it doesn't and I mean, the Elric stuff isn't even really where it ends if you wanna start thinking about the internal champion aspect of all of these and how he tries to combine his entire multiverse together. Not that I'm there right now, but
Yeah. I'm happy with reading this, and I'll read more of the Elric, but I'm not gonna not for a long time will I probably venture into his other stuff.
yeah.
I wanna go back to my claim about the book being a little too short or too fast paced,
Okay.
because I think one of the problems I had with this book is that there's one interesting character.
Yep.
He's interesting. He's very interesting. I think that's why people like it. Elric is the unwilling emperor of a falling empire who's lost its grace a long time ago. It's not good and evil. It's more like law versus chaos, and he's the thinking man's emperor who is living by his own code and wants to challenge himself in everything that he does. Um, but everybody else is really two dimensional, there
Mhm.
to support what he has. Or there was a really interesting character he met in the what was the shadow realm that he went to? What was that called?
I think it's just called Limbo.
Okay, when he went to Limbo, there was that guy who remembers and forgets, and that guy was interesting. He was barely there,
Yep.
but Yurkun was not interesting. Yurkun's sister was not interesting.
No.
Uh,
Uh,
I forgot his buddy's name. He wasn't interesting.
uh, Rakir
Akir,
or Divar Tram, which, both of them were his sidekick at some point.
Simril, his right hand man, his admiral or general, whatever it was. All of them are just really boring, and I think that maybe a longer book, because like there's so much happens in this book. It feels like with a different author who's focusing on different things. Maybe each book, or even maybe each part, could be a separate book.
Yeah.
Um, and Moorcock didn't go for that, and that's fine. You know, he wants to write a short, pulpy, punchy stuff that is maybe different from the other pulpy stuff that came before, which is fine. That's why it's popular. But I think it could have been stronger had he included some of the stuff that I mentioned.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, the idea of enjoying it as kind of a myth aside, I totally agree with you. Like, Cimaril is not a particularly interesting character to me. Like, she feels very, cookie cutter of characters in her role.
It's just a shame because when she was
Yeah.
first introduced, I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe there's a little potential here. Especially because one of the first things they said was, I highlighted it. It's like, maybe this is foreshadowing. Could still be, I suppose, but if protocol allow, he would offer her the throne. But as it is, she must sit at the topmost step of his feet. I was like, oh, maybe he will offer the throne, and he did, but he didn't sit on it.
No.
I don't know. I'm just kind of hoping all of these smaller characters. Again, this might be because we're reading the what was it, the third story that he released in this saga,
In the saga, yeah.
but first chronologically, and so he had to catch up to the point where the other readers were already at. Maybe these other characters are already interesting and already full and have their own internality, and but in this book, it's quite lacking.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think there are certain characters like was the man who knows everything and must become the man who knows nothing, like you were talking about. He shows up. I almost missed that he even served a point, like, because it was, a couple paragraphs and he had given them information, and I had to go back and I was, hold on, did he actually say anything? And sure enough, he did. It was very much a blink and you miss it type deal. If you're the type of reader who might start like me, or who might start glazing over a little bit in different parts of books. It'd be a little bit more difficult to keep up with. And yeah, like Yurkun, I know Yurkun kind of resembles like what Emir, the Dreaming City in Melniboné, used to be, and what they want, and what a lot of them want to continue to be. But it's hard to see him as anything other than evil. um, I I guess maybe part of the point is like, you're right. It's not a matter of good and evil for Emir, but it is like, their moral code is very out of sync with what I would consider my moral code, and so it is hard to see him outside of maybe that darker side.
That's also something that I like about the story, because the world, everything about the gods, and just how everything works with the hierarchy, it's centered around chaos versus law, right? But that doesn't mean that like good and evil does not exist, because even Elric near the end of the novel says maybe someday I could be like a good emperor. Like what that means, I need to find out. So
Yeah,
he acknowledges that there is good. And I suppose if there is good, then there has to be an opposite of good. And I really like that aspect, even though we acknowledge that, in the way that the world works, and it's not good versus evil.
but yeah. So I think we've been kind of dancing around spoilers at this point. I know we didn't really specify if there was going to be a spoiler, non-spoiler portion, but I do have a summary of the book for people who are interested, who want to go further. Do you have anything else to say before we get into a little bit more detail, or
Yeah, I think I'm good.
okay, cool. Yeah, I guess just as a final thing, I'll say, I gave this a 3.5 stars out of, or no, 4 stars out of 5. Like I said, I really do enjoy this. There's just little things here and there that, yeah, I desire a little bit more out of. So, this novel sees Eric Elric in the early years of his rule. He's in love with his cousin Cimarel and sees Imrir, the dreaming city, as crumbling and filled with decadence and overindulgence. Imrir has never had a particularly stunning moral code, and Elric's philosophical air tends to be a thorn in the sides of the Melnibonéans, who demand strong, violent rulers to satisfy their indulgent way of living. One such Melnibonéan is Elric's cousin Yirkun, who wants Elric's throne as well as his sister Cimarel. When a fleet of pirates invades Imrir, Yirkun takes advantage of Elric's weakened state and attempts to kill Elric by throwing him overboard. Elric calls for the sea god Strasha, and he is saved. Elric returns to Imrir and plans to punish Yirkun, but Yirkun escapes and kidnaps Cimarel. Elric makes a pact with another god, Ariok, a lord of chaos, and patron of Melniboné, to locate Cimarel. Ariok shares where Yirkun and Cimarel have gone and informs Elric that Yirkun seeks the twin demon blades, Stormbringer and Mournblade. A Melnibonéan with these blades can become near invincible. Using the ship which sails over land and sea, Elric chases after Yirkun, encounters the land elemental Grom, and successfully raids Yirkun's palace, discovering Cimarel has been enchanted by Yirkun into a slumber. Elric asks his men to take Cimarel back to Imrir and make her empress, and chases Yirkun through the Shade Gate. On the other side of the gate, Elric meets a warrior priest of Thum, Rakir the Red Archer. Together they find Yirkun and the swords, and Elric and Yirkun have a final duel where Elric also battles and overpowers the sword Stormbringer. Ariok transports them back to Imrir, where Elric decides he needs to wander the world searching for meaning, and he leaves Cimarel behind and Yirkun as Emperor of Melniboné. So,
Well done.
thank you. But yeah, it's there's a lot packed into those 190 pages. The book is broken out into 3 separate acts. I mean, I would call them, they're called books, but I would call them acts. Um, each one with a pretty, final place on where it wants to conclude. Very distinct pieces, um, and we get like this interesting. I don't know. I'm trying to work out this theme a little bit, but this theme of cycling um, power and how Elric never really has it outside of um, the stated position of emperor. Um, he is a very weak individual. Well, that's not even true. He fights fine. His body is weak in some respects. Like he gets tired and exhausted. He's dependent on drugs to make him stronger. Um, he cannot do any of the things that he does in this book except for overwhelm Stormbringer. I think everything else is he's reliant on gods or elementals that are willing to work with him. Um, and he sometimes outsmarts them. With Grom, he did outsmart Grom. Um, so he does have his mind, but it makes all of this like ultimately deciding Yurkun is the emperor, even though he was going to make Cimmeral empress. I don't know. I'm just very confused about that decision and trying to see where it places in this mythology, which maybe that becomes more clear with reads of other books. But I was wondering,
Sure.
yeah, how do you feel about Yurkun becoming emperor at the end?
Well, so that was actually the first thing I wanted to talk about. So thank you. We'll get into all the other stuff that you mentioned because I got some thoughts there too. But yeah, I imagine him making Yurkun the emperor at the end of the story rubbed a lot of readers the wrong way, and quite obviously why. Because it's stupid.
Yeah.
Cimmeril told him it's stupid. It is stupid. It's a bad decision. But okay, I understand not killing him with Stormbringer. I think he probably like if we're talking about like the intelligent thing to do, he should have killed him nonetheless.
Yeah.
Maybe not with Stormbringer, not to be a pawn of the sword or a pawn of the gods, but maybe have him executed. He is an emperor, and I understand his desire to have his ideals challenged and his doubt about the way that he leads, especially in the empire that he leads. But at the same time, everything Cimmeril said was correct. So he's a man who seems shackled by his own anti-pragmatic philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a that's a fair assessment of the guy. There are parts of him that just kind of scream like, "I'm not allowed to be happy. I'm not allowed to do this the easy way."
He's a
Um,
mopey emo.
yeah, he's just a weak little boy, right? I don't know.
Can we talk about his power too? Because it's one of the things that I really liked about it. Is like he relies on these potions. I don't want to say he's physically weak. He could still fight, but he's weak. Everybody
Yeah,
knows he's weak, and yet he still has confidence in his power as the emperor. I'm not quite sure what he definitely has a strong mind, but there's one thing I'm afraid of. His physical weakness came in, and it nearly cost him the throne because Yurkun tried to kill him. He was saved by the elemental. But I'm afraid getting Stormbringer is going to take away this aspect of his character. And I really hope
yeah,
that it doesn't.
yeah. I kind of agree with you, and I have no like strong. I don't know, but I do have some strong inclinations towards that's kind of what's about to happen. Is that Stormbringer is kind of the replacement for the drugs, just because I think he's going to travel the world. He knows that to contain Stormbringer, he needs to fight with Stormbringer, and it sounds like Stormbringer is going to reward him for that behavior. And I don't know, like I think there's room for contemplation of that, and what that means, but I'm not looking forward to what might be a lot of stories where we kind of revert back to what this story seemed to be reflecting on, right? And trying to counter. Um,
It's just like the
could
first
be wrong.
story chronologically, it seems like maybe his weakness just felt like a small obstacle that's not really important because he fixed it in the book one.
Yeah.
I think it might have been more interesting if we had his weakness be something that he constantly had to struggle with until he gets this magical object, this badass sword that will solve it for him. But I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know like Elric and Stormbringer, they've been together since the beginning. So it does seem like again, this was one of those things that we were referencing earlier where this book was written, it's internally chronological, but it came out 10 years later, so it is just kind of putting a bunch of pieces in together. Like I think by the end of this book, I had no doubt that he was going to have Stormbringer because I knew Stormbringer existed. I think even one of the collections is called Stormbringer, so it's just one of those obvious connections. But yeah, it is worrisome. I don't know. I feel like if you're writing this many short works about a character as well, you might continue to face that, like there might be that continued issue of not getting deep enough, not digging deeper into this. And so sometimes you are just releasing a story where Stormbringer does cool stuff. Or yeah, like that's what he's here for, right? So
That's the thing. Like, I don't. I know this started off as pulp novels, and pulp
yeah.
novels have a certain reputation as not high quality.
Yeah.
Let's just say
Yeah.
it. It's true. They're mostly just adventure stories for kids with a little bit extra change at the convenience store. Is what my image of pulp novels are. Not to say that there aren't good pulp novels, and that there isn't value in pulp novels. I think he's shown that there's at least a little bit in here, but I'm just hoping it grows a little bit more than that.
Yeah. Agreed. And I hope that the continued popularity of these means that that is what's happening. Um, but there'll only be one way to find out, right? And they'll be to continue forward with those stories. Um, so we'll see.
I want to say something else that I really, really liked about this story. I might have mentioned earlier, but I love the heavy influence of gods and elementals in
Hmm.
this book. It gives the world a much grander feel, despite the length of the novel, and it gives me a lot more to look forward to, and it gives me a better perspective of the kind of powers and the power structures, and the hierarchies that are involved in it. And I'm really excited for that to be explored more in future novels.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's break that down a little bit because I did really enjoy that we seem to have at least two levels of God right now. We have our elementals that seem to actually be of the plane that Melniboné is on, which I think is just an alternate Earth. They kept calling it Earth. Um, and then we have the Lords of Chaos who seem to be more deific in their existence, and they seem to be much more in line with like trickster devils. At least Ariok is, right? Because we see Ariok in both or in all three interactions that he has with Elric trying to trick him into subservience and succeeding only where Elric understands that that's kind of the step he has to take, the direction he has to go, but also at some points avoiding traps that Ariok is leading him into, which I find really fun and thought provoking. And then, like with the elementals, though, it's a simple matter of what kind of respect do you have for the person? I can't remember. Do you remember exactly what Strasha said to Elric that allowed him to be uh, to get the to get the ship?
I don't.
Because I think it was something along the lines of, "I know you have good intentions. That's all I needed. So here's the ship. Enjoy. Just keep it away from my brother." I was like the basics of it.
Love that ship too. I love the name
Such a
too.
I know, such a cool ship. I was like, this is a mouthful, but is like it's awesome. Like I'm glad it doesn't have like some there's a lot of crazy names in this book. I'm glad they're not excessive right? Like, I think we only see a couple of apostrophes in these every once in a while. The names that we have for Yurkun and Cimmeril and Elric all seem to kind of fit within this mold of the Melnibonéan naming. Not that we really hear many other races. And then, like, ship which sails over land and sea. It's the purpose that it serves. Like, that's what it can do.
I was really sad to see it go. I was also really sad to see it get nerfed, but it was a great
Yeah,
scene.
yeah.
I hope it comes back.
I hope it comes back too, because I found like that was a really good bit of humor where it's like we got across like a very small section of land before this became useless. I'm not happy with that.
Okay, here's our plan. We're gonna do here. We have the perfect thing for it. Okay, let's do it. And
Let's do it. And Groom's just not today. I want it back. And I love that like Strasha and Grom have very distinct personalities. Like they're not just all three of the gods that we see have distinct personalities. Strasha seems to be a little bit more noble in his existence. Grom is as smart as a hunk of rocks can be.
and very selfish. He's like a toddler.
Yeah. And then Ariok is very sly. So it's just like all things that like just very much make me beam while I'm reading. Like I just
Mhm.
feel very good about all of this. And then I also like another thing that Strasha does, which was s- it would have been much more subtle had we not had like only three gods we'd interacted with. But when they're doing the siege on Yurkun's palace, a bunch of fire elementals start burning the buildings, and none of Yurkun's men can actually use water, which I was like, this is great. Like, he is truly a water elemental. He can just stop water from doing what its intended purpose anywhere. It does not need be in close vicinity of him, or it's in very close vicinity because he is all water. But however you want to look at that.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for. I'm sure it'll come too. But just more of the Manibinians and specifically the emperor's relationship with the elementals and why Strasza, for example, might support him the way that he does. Because it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like Strasza gets much out of it.
No, he just kind of yeah, he just chooses to help. There is kind of this over I know Tolkien wasn't an influence, but I'm just going to use it kind of as the closest analog. It's like, what if the elves of the Lord of the Rings went bad? Is kind of what the Melnibonéans feel like, right? It's like they have these relationships with nature and the elementals that seem to be respected and followed through on, but we also have this aspect of the young kingdoms, which seem to be more focused as like kingdoms of man invading on this more mythical, fantastical setting. And so, yeah, I would be interested to see. I like the idea of the politics that are being set up in these three realms and how those play out with each other.
You said that Tolkien was not an influence, and I disagree. I think Tolkien was an anti-influence.
Okay, but you want to go further?
Um, I'll get into that when I'm talking about Epic Pooh later.
Which might be now if you're up for it. Or do you want to say anything else about the elementals and the kingdoms?
No, let's just get into the listener questions.
Oh, you want to do that first? All right,
Yeah.
that sounds good. Okay, so Murph, I appreciate you, Murph. You
Thank
were
you,
really
Murph.
excited. Yeah, you were really excited that we were doing this, and
Murph is
I
the
am
hero of this episode.
happy. Yeah. Okay, so Murph's first question: do you think Martin was inspired by Melniboné when he created the Targaryens?
There we go. Yes, but
Yeah.
I think he was also inspired by other things. I think the Targaryens in A Song of Ice and Fire would be like if the Numenorians in Tolkien's Legendarium didn't all die in a Atlantis type of destruction event, but instead continued on their evil path of conquest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that. I think I agree. I think the Melnibonéans I'm much like Tolkien. I am kind of hard pressed to see some of the darker fantasies that we read now not being influenced, even if it's indirectly by this work. I mean, I would even go so far as to say like characters like Drisdord and the Dungeons and Dragons stuff are based on Melnibonéans. Dark elves in those have a strong relation to this. But yeah, this is the end point of the Targaryens, right? This is where they end up. Absolutely. If you had a magic sword, what would you name it?
You go first.
Oh, okay. Um, I should have thought about this beforehand. Uh, I kind of like something more akin to like Sting, right?
Hmm,
But I would maybe choose like Viper Tooth or Viper's Fang or Fang. That'd be a good name.
I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
So I would probably do something stupid like Dragnipur because I'm unoriginal.
Sure. Sure. I was kind of wondering, like,
I would just name.
that's got
I
to be
would,
influence, right?
of course.
Yeah.
For years, people would ask Stephen Erickson about Moorcock's Elric, and he's like, I've never read it. I've never read it. I've never read it. And I'm not saying he's lying,
Yeah.
but Malazan was made by two people, and guess what? Esselmont has read Moorcock, and he's specifically said that this was an influence. So
All right. Well, there we go.
I would call it Dragnipur, or I would just call it Sword, so it knows who its master is. And like, you don't deserve a name. I'm just gonna call you Sword. Maybe if we
Okay.
get a little more Bondy,
Yeah.
I would give it a proper name like Dragnipur. But at the beginning,
You
just
get
like Sword, do this, Sword, do this. But
you'll have the
like,
name that you
if he
earned.
gets cool, maybe
Yeah.
he'll get a proper name, and or maybe because we're so close, like Sword just becomes its proper name.
Yeah. I like that. I like that thought process. I feel like that's I think if you're gonna have a magic sword, having it earn the name kind of makes sense, right? Like it has to do the name has to be evocative of what the thing does. Um, that's good. All right. All right. Well, speaking of magic swords, do you think Sanderson was inspired by Stormbringer for a certain famous sword, as was, or was he likely inspired by something multiple generations removed? I did investigate this one just because if you are a Sanderson fan, um, and you've done a lot of deep dive on stuff on occasion, you might have learned that the Coppermind exists, and they have,
You
like, pretty much every question he's ever been asked at a panel pops in there. So I just did a brief search for Stormbringer, and sure enough, in 2019, someone asked him this question, and he said yes. He was absolutely influenced. So that's what his position was, 7 years ago. I think we can assume that's still true today.
nah, it's not true anymore. It was
No,
true 7 years
he
ago, but
yeah, yeah. But then he really was like, "No, that thing doesn't represent it at all."
no,
Um,
what I wrote was I'd be surprised if he wasn't because a talking sword, it's not super uncommon, but it's also not as or as endemic as you'd think it would be. Because talking swords
no,
are really cool, like
they
sentient
are really
swords.
cool.
The only other sentient sword that I could think of before this was from Tolkien, and it was Gurthang for Turambar, and it only spoke once at the end of Turin's life.
Yeah,
I think this is
and
like the big sentient sword.
yeah, I think so. I mean, there is one Gurthang and Stormbringers were influenced by, I think it's a Finnish myth called Turfing, was a cursed sword in Norse mythology. I have no idea if it spoke. That's the name that kept cropping up looking into this. So yeah, I think, but I still would hold that, you know, this is probably like the talking sword. Now, one should question whether the singing sword in Who Framed Roger Rabbit was
I
influenced, but a whole different vibe there.
Oh yeah, the Hust swords in Malazan are also speaking, kinda.
Forgot
Like
about
screaming.
those. Yeah. Yeah,
I should
they
read
they
Finnish folk tales because they also have the Kelevava, and that's pretty influential on Tolkien at least.
on Tolkien. Yeah. What would it take for you to make a pact with a demon sword? Not much, honestly. I think I think I've gone about over this in a previous episode, but like I'm guessing I'm pretty susceptible to this type of thing, just in general. I
I am a lot more cautious than you.
yeah.
I've read too many Faustian stories to. So first, I would make sure that the sword needs me, and I don't need it. If I need it, absolutely not going to happen. Unless it's like there's some way to save my family that's better to die. I'd probably rather die than make a pact with a sword or a demon. Uh,
Yeah,
and then I would only promise things that have so many caveats as to give me complete control.
sure.
So you know how you read about stories about people thinking about ways around the genies, curses, and tricks.
Yeah,
I would
you're
think
gonna get
really
those
really hard. Yeah,
you're gonna get those
like
3
okay, you
wishes that
can't
you have
wish
to
for a million
require.
wishes, but you could wish for a million genies, that kind of thing.
That thing, yeah. That's
Um,
fair.
and
See,
then
I'm totally on the line of if I'm even messing with a demon sword, there must be a reason, and so I'm like, "This'll probably be fine."
I
But
in my current life, I'm pretty comfortable. So unless like I said, if unless I'm in a situation where like my family's in trouble, or like it's the end of the world, or it could solve like world hunger or something, like if it doesn't give in to my demands, I'm just gonna say, "See ya, you could rot here forever."
yeah,
And I'd probably go out of my way to make sure that nobody else can get this sword. It's just bad news. I've read too many stories where it's just bad news.
that's true. You would think I should know that, but, no. I'm gonna realize it's a bad thing way too late. Is Elric first published in 1961 the original anti-hero? I don't think so. Maybe?
Maybe in fantasy.
In fantasy, yeah. That's where my mind was going directly to, like, noir and things like that, as, like, I think we've had some pretty rough detectives prior to that. Um,
Traditional fantasy at least. The only anti-hero I could think of was I don't even remember his name. The protagonist in Kafka's Metamorphosis. He's
oh,
he's
yeah,
less
what
of
is
an
his
anti-hero, more than just like a regular dude.
Yeah. It's like,
It's just
I
like terrible things keep happening to him, and he doesn't know what to do about it.
yeah. Uh, Gregor?
Thank you. Yes, Gregor.
Yeah, Gregor.
Gregor woke up and found that he had turned into a cockroach.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, and then I don't like I was talking about earlier, like mythology has. I know we're now bordering on whether we call this fantasy or not, but like Hercules is not a great dude.
None of
um,
the Greek
None of
heroes.
the Greek heroes were, yeah,
Listeners can't see this, but I'm putting quotes around heroes because our hero and the Greek hero are very different things. None of them are good.
yeah. But I think, yeah, maybe we're looking too far back on that one.
Don Quixote.
Ooh, you'd call Don Quixote an anti-hero?
Well, he's a hero in the
Mm,
sense that he's the protagonist doing quests and adventures.
yeah,
He's not a good dude. He's
no,
crazy, tilting at windmills.
yeah, yeah. He's not. I was like, he's kind of an imp still. But, yeah, that's a hard one. I would actually be kind of curious, like where that line is drawn in an academic sense. Because I'm sure someone
Turin
has
bar
said
maybe.
Turin, yeah, because Turin would have come out just before this or just after 1961. When was the
I don't know.
Silmarillion published?
Maybe after actually. 77.
1977. We're talking about the book that we were talking about even came out before the Silmarillion. That's fascinating.
But Turin was written well before.
Well, before, that's true. It just wouldn't have had any grasp on the zeitgeist.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think Turin's one of my favorite Tolkien stories, actually.
Yeah, I love Turin.
As if my name didn't give it away.
Yeah. No, I've we're approaching like the 5-year period where I'm like, "God, I should pick up the Silmarillion again."
I'm reading
Just to
through the Lord of the Rings right now, actually, and as soon as I'm finished with that, I'm going to read all of like the posthumous Tolkien works.
Tolkien
I
works.
still haven't read Beren and Luthien, and I think The Fall of Gondolin, so yeah, I'm going to finally get those.
Get those. I think those I definitely purchased them. I have not read those. The only one that I read was The Children of Hurin.
That was
Yeah.
my favorite.
You know. Weird. All right, and then our final question. If anyone on the panel is widely read in Moorcock, what other Moorcock non-Elric novels do you recommend? Like I said, we're both pretty fresh here. Um,
I'll take
I
this. Go ahead.
Oh no, go for it.
I'll take this opportunity to finally talk about Epic Pooh.
Okay.
So you said you've never even heard of Epic Pooh?
I don't think so.
Okay.
If you remind me just what it is, I might.
I've not read any other Moorcock except Epic Pooh, and Epic Pooh is a wonderful essay about traditional fantasy, specifically Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and somebody else, I don't remember their name. And while I think his criticisms of traditional fantasy, especially stuff before Moorcock, are correct, I disagree that they're problematic in isolation.
Okay.
Essentially, he argues that Tolkien and Lewis romanticizes the past. He calls Lord of the Rings Winnie the Pooh, but epic. That it's meant to be reassuring and a comfort to the reader instead of challenging them.
Got it.
And
Okay.
he says it's bourgeois, anti-urban, and anti-technology, and that it retreats into the idyllic past rather than confront modern problems. Like I said, though, I think labeling it as a problem in and of itself is silly and honestly very reductive of Tolkien's work in particular. Like Tolkien's problems with modernity, such as industrialization, pollution, and technology, are more relevant now than it ever has been. And yes, while his books are rather politically sterile, that's not the focus of his work, and that's fine. Like I said, in a general sense, I think Moorcock is right about how these things can become problems. For example, an idealization of an idyllic past that never actually existed. Those things are cropping up everywhere. They can become problems if, for example, that's all that a reader reads, and that it's probably better to read challenging work as well.
Right.
But I do think it's reductionist in that it ignores a lot of what Tolkien was going for and what Tolkien did successfully with actual problems.
Okay. That's really cool. When was this essay written?
1978.
19. Okay. So, so some, I guess I'm kind of fascinated by this idea of Tolkien's contemporaries and how many of them seem to come out of the woodwork in fantasy discussion on being kind of anti-Tolkien. um, I'm trying to think like Donaldson and Le Guin essays also come to mind that were um, just pointing out some of the the weaker points of Tolkien's attempts at creating a mythos and things like that. Um, so this is an interesting one to have to add on to that. I'll have to read that essay. I'm glad when you kept saying epic poo, and I was just like, I have no idea what poo is referencing. So I'm glad it's Pooh Bear, not something else. But that's cool. Okay.
I'd recommend a read. It's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I that's definitely like the type of essay too that I feel like that would give a lot more insight into maybe what he's trying to do with Elric, especially considering 1977. That's again almost a full 2 decades of Elric work existing, among many other things. I will mention and the only reason I mentioned this is because I found it, it was released recently, but the Elric Saga, and I've mentioned it multiple times in this episode. Elric is a facet of the Eternal Champion. And another pretty famous one is a character named Von Beck, who has also received from Saga Press a compendium of all of their work. And my understanding is that's more like a Napoleonic era character, in an alternate France. So, or maybe even Germany. Just yeah, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure when the era is, but I got the impression it was of the 1800s ish. So I can't recommend it, but it's out there.
It exists.
It
Wow,
exists.
I didn't even know it exists, so thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe China Mieville, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right. He also has a similar essay that it's a lot more it has similar criticisms, and yet it's still very complimentary of Tolkien from what I've read. I need to read his as well.
Yeah,
I haven't read any Mieville. I want to, but
yeah, I've heard really good things about different Mieville work. It seems to be pretty popular. I think Nat on the Discord really enjoys a lot of it, which is a good recommendation on its own. So, but yeah, it's funny. I've spent so much time, I'd say in the last 10 years or so post college, really admiring Tolkien's work and seeing a lot of positive discussion on it. And it's funny how that coin is kind of flipped to the other side now, and now a lot more anti-Tolkien, or that seems too harsh, but critical Tolkien assessment is coming out. So, all right, well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode.
I got a question. We reading on?
I mean, I'm ready. I'm game. Are you?
I'm up for it. Yeah.
You're up for it? All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Well, in that case, I don't know when it's going to happen, folks, but we will be next covering The Fortress of the Pearl. Is the next in the chronological order.
Skipped chronological. Let's go to the end.
Let's go to the end. You want to just toss around whichever ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Perfect.
I'm joking.
Enjoy the chaos. What in Ariok's favor we will be.
It's what he would want.
It is. That's what we can be, strong Ariokites. So, okay. Well, Hurin, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for
inviting me. I wish we had more with us.
I know. This is one of those series that I was like, I can think of so many people on the green team who would probably enjoy this.
Yeah, thought so too.
Yeah. Maybe we can, these are so we'll have to see. If it's standalone-ish, we might be able to convince people to join us as we go. Who knows?
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, thank you for joining me. And for Hurin and myself, this has been Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock. Thank you for joining us. Adios.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That concludes our episode. Please like and subscribe. Leave us a comment on YouTube. Give us 5 stars and drop us a review on Spotify, iTunes, or any podcast app that allows reviews. You can find us on the Legendarium Discord. The invite link is on legendarium.com and in the show notes. Green Team of the Legendarium can be found on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and wherever great podcasts are heard. Thanks to Professor Craig for loaning us a little corner of your media empire. Shout out to Horizon Brave for starting it all. Music is Galactic Damages by Jingle Punks.